Welcome to Get Real with Brian Stuckey, an all-new program to get you real information about how real estate affects you, your family, and your community. Brought to you in part by Bankers Network Corporation. And now, Brian Stuckey.
Good evening. Welcome to Get Real. I'm Brian Stuckey. I've got a great program once again for you this evening. Tonight, for the first time, I've got Matt Cestaric. He's with Stevensen, Neal Realtors. He's a broker associate there. We're going to talk about short sales. A lot of people are, there's a large percentage of new home buys that are going on that are short sales. We're going to find out more about what that's all about. And then I have, by the numbers segments, I have Robert Balopole. He's with Balopole Investment Management Corp, and he's a CFA. We're going to talk a little bit about, have we seen the largest part of the dip? Is there going to be a double dip? We're going to ask some other questions of Robert. And then in the weekly spotlight, I have Madison Nguyen. She's a district council member, District 7. And we're going to find out what's going on with Madison. She's up for re-election this year. We're going to find out. And then finally in the lifestyle segment, I have Marty Sharpe. He's a health and fitness guru, and we're going to find out what's going on in his mind. But first, on the property page 7, Matt Cestaric. On for the first time, I'm excited about having Matt Cestaric on. He's a broker associate with Stevensen and Neal Realtors, and right there in Campbell. And Matt, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me here. It's a great pleasure to be here.
Yeah, super. We've talked about short sales, but first, before we go into that, let's just get a general idea of what's going on in the real estate market. Is there still a lot of activity there? I know interest rates are down, and there's these first-time home buyer incentives still out there. But in general, how do you see it?
We're in a really robust market right now. You go into any area, North Valley, Blossom Valley, Sunnyvale, Campbell, where my office is, and you'll see activity levels are just booming. More than 45 to 50% of all the inventory in each of the markets is actually under contract right now, which bodes well as a seller. Unfortunately, in a lot of circumstances, the sellers we have now quite a bit are short sale sellers. And so they're not going to really reap the benefit of any money their way, but they will benefit by not having that nasty bankruptcy or foreclosure on their credit.
Yeah. And what's it like to put those together? By the very name, short sale, doesn't indicate that this is going to be quick.
No, it's the wrong word to use as far as a buyer and a seller go. You have to have patience. The agents have to have patience. You have to communicate with each other, and you're constantly talking with the buyer. If you represent the buyer, you're constantly talking with the seller. The agents are talking with each other constantly, just trying to find out, have you heard from the bank? Have you heard from the bank? Because ultimately, the short sale process involves a seller who signs off on a sale of the home. They're going to net less than what they owe against the property, so they're requesting that the bank cover that loss, and the bank has to approve it.
Okay. And how difficult is it to work with these banks? And who's working with the bank? Is it the buyer or the seller's agent?
The seller has the responsibility through their agent to work with the bank.
Okay.
The bank won't talk to you unless you as a listing agent show them an agreement that you can speak on behalf of the seller. Okay. And so quite a bit that dialogue between the agent and the bank, and it could be anybody at the bank. It depends on how the bank does their process. There's procedures, some of them I've done with Bank of America. They have a 3-step process. That may have changed by now. You get the short sale paperwork in, you get somebody to sign off on the price, and you get somebody to close it. So you have a process that will take anywhere from 60 to 90 days.
Okay.
I understand they're working on trying to shorten those time frames because it is difficult for a buyer to stay in there. A buyer's going, have we heard?
Yeah.
And if they haven't heard anything, they might start looking for another property.
Yep. But like you said, ultimately, the buyers are going to be going in at a being able to buy a home at a reduced value. Right. Like you mentioned, the seller at the same time isn't going to have the bankruptcy or the foreclosure or all things that equal into bad credit.
Correct.
Over their head. So now, how long does this usually take, let's say, or is it just all relative? Is there some banks in particular that just are difficult to work with, let's say? Or you probably don't want to say that, but it's like...
I might have to talk to one of them later on.
Yeah.
But, the process starts off with the lender requiring paperwork ultimately from the distressed home seller. Mm-hmm. They want to make sure that person is distressed and they're not just trying to bail on a house that is underwater.
Okay.
So they want to see a hardship letter. They want to see tax returns for the last 2 years. They want to see bank statements. They want to see if you're still working. Once they have that in place, they say, okay, give us an offer. And it can be anywhere from 4 weeks, if you're very lucky, to 90 days before you're going to hear an approval on that short sale offer.
Okay. So there's a lot of negotiating still going on between the agents about how much, because ultimately, the bank's going to want as much as they can get.
Correct. They're a seller like anybody else at this point. Even though they're not the owner of the property, they still have to try to satisfy the powers that be. They're investors, because quite often, if it's a B of A loan, they might be just handling the loan for the ultimate investor. Okay. So they need that investor's approval.
Okay. Now, we just have a minute left. So what would you recommend to buyers at this stage? What would you recommend to sellers?
For a buyer, again, I use the word patience. Some people, they'll read in the paper how they're going to get a great deal. Well, you will ultimately get a good deal on the property. You got to find a house that you like. As I tell people on a short sale, make sure it's the house that you have to have.
Okay.
Not because you think you want it, because you will get tested, your patience will get tested, and your desire for the property will get tested.
Yeah, it's a home. It's not just an investment there. So we got to stop there. But Cestaric's been my guest. I want to thank Matt for coming on my program. If you have any questions for Matt or any of my guests, please get a hold of me at 408-269-8366 or Brian at 4bestloan.com. I'll be right back with the By the Numbers segment and Robert Balopole. My guest is Robert Balopole, the By the Numbers segment, and Robert's been on the program before, and by popular demand, I got a flood of emails and everything else. Robert, a lot of people are stressed out right now.
Sure.
And they probably cry on your shoulder a little bit too, just like give us some encouragement and everything else. But that might be kind of hard to do because when you look at the economy, we're in a recession, and people are wondering if we're going into depression. And the bottom line is that what are the chances of a double dip of that?
Chances of another recession, 100%. The question is, will it be now? Will it be a couple of years from now? And well, you kind of have to look under the hood to decide, at the various specific factors affecting us today to determine, what's happening right now. But typically, the U.S. economy grows about 3% a year. That's been the track record since 1950.
Yeah.
And actually, you mentioned we're in a recession. Actually, the latest government figures are very good and actually showed a 5.7% increase in the U.S. economy.
It's funny because I say a recession only because nobody's told me differently. And it's funny because I think we hold on to that. We still have friends that are losing their jobs or haven't found employment. So you just assume that nothing's really changed.
Well, employment's what you call a lagging indicator.
Okay.
So there's all this pain around in the streets. And it's no good to tell someone who's unemployed that, the economy is growing. But somebody out there is making money because, the economy actually is growing.
Okay, with that, you mentioned, so usually the definition, as you had indicated before, a recession is two dips, basically,
well, a recession would be 2 quarters of the economy contracting.
Okay, all right.
In a row.
So right now, you wouldn't suggest that's where we're at right now. Is that correct? We actually had some growth, but you at the same time you said it's going to be 100% that we're going to have another dip.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say we're there right now. In fact, I'd say the odds are we're going to continue with an expansion. I mean, just because, like I say, on average, there's something called reversion to the mean. On average, we can expect the economy to grow 3%. But it's a concern because if we do have another dip, we've already played the card of government intervention and flooding the market with liquidity. we've already, done all the things, all the toolkit the government has to do to stave off a recession. So if there's another one, you can't really do those things again because they've already been done.
Okay. How do you see housing prices?
I think housing prices are in the process of bottoming. The Case-Shiller index of the 20 metropolitan areas showed 4 regions up year over year, including this region. And the latest figures showed 7 out of the 20 actually rising in the latest month that was surveyed. And that doesn't sound great, but that's a lot better than 0. So the housing market's in the process of bottoming. The storm clouds on the horizon is that the Federal Reserve is stopping their program of buying mortgage-backed securities as of March 30th. That's been a huge help to the housing industry because that's been $1 trillion intervention. The home buyer credit's going away April 30th.
Sure.
FHA tightened up their rules, as you know. And all these programs to keep people in their homes are in the process of phasing out. So housing market turning around, but they're pulling away the government supports.
And so then now you're asking banking to be on its own 2 legs, and what's that look like?
Well, of course, the fact that the housing market stabilized is fantastic news for the banks. But I recently looked at Citigroup and Bank of America. They're still losing money in their latest quarter. And you have to wonder whether their loan loss reserves are adequate. Because they don't even write down a mortgage till it's 6 months delinquent,
Okay.
And they really haven't deleveraged like they said they would. I mean, they've shrunk their asset base maybe 8-10% over the last year. So banks, not out of the woods yet.
Okay. And then how do you see how is that going to project in interest rates? We just have about a minute left, but how do you think interest rates are going to
Well, short-term interest rates are about 0, and you can't go lower than 0. So I feel it's a safe bet, they're going to go up. But also, the longer term interest rates, unfortunately, are dictated by foreigners. And in December, there was the lowest drop, in foreign demand for U.S. securities on record. China, instead of being a buyer, sold about $35 billion worth of U.S. securities. So that's another factor driving rates up.
All right. Robert Balopole has been my guest. He's a CFA, which is, by the way, a certified
Chartered financial
financial analyst. I'll get eventually one of these days. But if you have any questions for Robert and my guest, I want to encourage you to get a hold of me at brian@4bestloan.com or 408-269-8366. Coming up next in the weekly spotlight, I have Madison Nguyen, council member, District 7. We'll be right back. My guest is Madison Nguyen, and I'm excited about having her back. She is the first Vietnamese American to be elected to office, I think, in the Bay Area, and it could be expanded beyond that. I always forget that, Madison, what exactly, it's more than just the Bay Area, isn't it?
First Vietnamese woman elected in the state of California.
In the state of California, okay. But you know what, it's, ever since you were elected, this was back in June, I think, pardon me, it was in 2005.
2005.
You were elected, and that was I remember that race because it was a heated race and everything else. You went down to the nitty gritty and you won, and that was an exciting moment. Then you went through the recall thing, and which was ridiculous to a lot of people, and I was pretty vocal about that. A lot of people felt the same way, and that's why that was defeated. Right. But now you've got another election coming up in June, and it's just one battle after the next, isn't it?
I often joke with my friends and supporters that I probably will go down history as an elected official who has to run the most in the shortest amount of time. Mm-hmm. It's only been 4 years, and I'm actually going on my 5th election, which is in June, which is very rare. Mm-hmm. But given its politics, so nothing is the same. Mm-hmm. Things changes every day, and we're just gonna run a very positive grassroots campaign, okay. And I'm sure voters will understand what I've done for them in the last 4 years.
We're going to talk about that too, because I know you've done quite a bit, in your district, and I know you got the election. But I want to back off for a second, because when you look at the national scene, mm-hmm. A lot of people are angry. I would say it's to that point because we get stagnated by being able to do things because of bipartisanship and everything else. I consider myself an independent, mm-hmm. And all you want to see from officials is your elected officials is that they work together.
Right.
How does that, if you look at in the city, is there partisanship, or how does that work out itself in politics in our own government, local government?
That's an excellent question, especially in this political environment. Fortunately, what's happening at the national level and the state level don't necessarily trickle down to the local level.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, we have a very strong, very dynamic council, and the mayor's doing an excellent job, and he has a lot of allies. And so, at the end of the day, we're putting the needs of the residents before us more than anything else. And the city of San Jose, with the council members, is nonpartisan. And so, regardless whatever your party affiliation is, it shouldn't come in terms of what you need to do for our residents. And so that has always been a motto. And I think that's why we've been doing really well in our city.
Yeah, I always wonder at what point one day that you may be our governor of California. We'll see, how the politics go at that level. It'll be interesting to have you come back on the show and find out what's going on. So let's talk a little bit about, what you've accomplished in District 7 once you got through all the recall and everything else, because that's got to be distracting. So, but there's a long list of things. I went to your website, and I don't have them in front of me, but what are some of the major accomplishments that you feel
Sure.
like
Well, the biggest thing for me is to continue to create jobs for our residents. And we want them to stay here. We want them to live here, work here, and play here. And so in the last 4 years that I've been their council member, with the completion of the planned shopping center at the corner of Monterey and Kirtner, we have created over 1,000 jobs for our residents here, and that's continued to boom. I just, as a matter of fact, before coming here, I had lunch with the developer, and I'm trying to help him to bring more retailers into the planned shopping center. And so once we do that, then we can generate more jobs. So that's the job creation part. I've also, I've been advocating to create more than 700 affordable homes for low-income families in the district. And so that's 700 families who actually, get to call a new home, their perhaps, hopefully, their permanent home. And then we did a lot of road improvements, a lot of street improvements, filling up potholes. And then we also built 2 small neighborhood parks, and I have 3 more parks in the pipeline.
Right.
And so there's just a lot of, great projects that I've accomplished, given the short amount of time that I've been in office. But I couldn't have done this without my colleagues' support. And that's going back to your first question about, how do we work together in terms of, partisanship. And, we put the partisanship aside, and we said, we need to do this to benefit our residents, and that's why we're able to carry out those agendas.
Well, how does that look? What's that look like to someone like, you get on the phone and call up North Campus? I mean, when you say your colleagues, you talk about the other district members.
Right.
So how do they impact decisions, or just by the fact that they'll vote on something and they agree with you on a project that you're working on?
Absolutely. Okay. With every project that I wanted to advocate for on its behalf, I need to get 6 votes. So there are 11 members, 10 council members, and the mayor. As long as you get 6 votes for any particular project, then once that project is approved, then it can go to work. I have great allies, great relationships with my colleagues. Most of the things that we do, it actually caters to all the residents in the city of San Jose, and not just a particular district. We used to have this notion of the mini-mayor system, where if you represent a particular council district, you're like the mini-mayor in that district. I don't believe in that concept. I believe that I'm here to represent everyone in the city of San Jose, and that's my job. That's my duty. Okay,
and I imagine that would be your campaign,
Right.
Pretty much slogan or something like that. Everybody, you mentioned that when it came to the Little Saigon and everything else, is that we encompass all citizens here,
Right.
just
Right.
not Vietnamese. So how is that your campaign looking? At this point, what do you think you need to say in order to get people to understand where you're going?
Well, the campaign is going really well. Like
Okay.
I said, I want to run a very positive grassroots campaign, talking to as many people as I possibly can, and let them know what I have accomplished for them in the last 4 years and what I plan to do in the next 4 years after re-election.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty simple.
Well, one thing that I just liked what you said. You want people to live here, work here, and also play here. And I know there's something going on over at the right across the municipal stadium. What's the name of the park?
Municipal Stadium, Kelly Park.
Kelly Park. Yes.
Well, we have.
I've heard some nice things about Kelly Park.
The renovation of Happy Hollow. Actually,
that's
the
it.
grand opening is on March 20th, and I would like this opportunity to invite everyone to come out and celebrate with us, because it represents a cultural gem. It's definitely the city's gem in our city, and I feel just very privileged to have it in my council district.
Okay, well, great.
Yeah.
The election is June
8th.
8th. Okay, vote for Madison Nguyen. I want to encourage you to do that. Madison's done a great job in District 7. She's always a favorite guest of mine to come on this program, especially knowing what she's gone through just from the very beginning when she was four years old when you came over from Vietnam. So, Madison, good luck to you.
Thank you very much, Brian.
I want to thank Madison Nguyen for being a guest. If you have any questions for her or any of my guests, please get a hold of me at brian@4bestloan.com or 408-269-8366. Coming up next in the lifestyle segment, I have Marty Sharpe. I'll be right back. My guest is Marty Sharpe. He's a health and fitness guru. That's what I call him. We can say consultant if we want to be formal about it. But Marty, you always get a few laughs when you come on this program, especially when you throw that big piece of fat on
I
my...
brought it
you
again.
brought it again.
Because I love it. It's a
Okay.
good demo, isn't it?
It is a good demo because it seemed to...
Should I bring it out now? Let's do it.
if you'd like to.
There
So,
we go, baby.
well,
It's better. It's not as attractive as the sculpt.
it's not as attractive as sculpting. But why don't we talk a little bit? Last time I said it's not too late for people to get in, kick in their New Year's resolutions and get health and fit. And especially in a time where people aren't sure about their health, benefits or if they have insurance or not. Yeah. The best thing is to go ahead and take care of yourself. So why don't you say what you want to say?
Absolutely. Well, here's another little demo. See this here? You know what this is? This is the magic pill, okay, that everybody buys to go ahead and get healthy and lose weight. You cannot go ahead and get these and expect to get healthy. Okay, you see these on TV all the time. Everybody wants the quick way out, and that does not exist, all right? It's a process that has to be done on a daily basis. And if you want to get rid of this, and by the way, that's 5 pounds, okay, of visceral body fat.
That's not really fat, though, is it?
Yeah.
That's real fat?
Yeah, well, it's real fake fat.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah, I took it out of you when you weren't looking. And it's
not very nice, by the way.
Yeah, sorry, but it didn't hurt.
We're
did
on
it?
camera.
You to get rid of this, what's really sad is people are dying because they're overweight and they're too fat. And that's pretty ridiculous when you think about it. Okay, it leads to a lot of serious illness. And there's a new one out now called obesitins. I don't know if you ever heard of this, but imagine, okay, chemicals and pesticides and these additives and these buffering agents that these companies are putting into our food that will lower your metabolism and increase the size of your fat cells. And this is happening. And it's happening because we need to seriously supplement. You have to. If you live in the United States of America, you better supplement. Now, if you're in your 20s, okay, you're kind of indestructible. 30s, but once you get into the 40s, 50s, 60s, and above, you better start putting some amazing food into your body. And you better supplement properly. And finding the right supplement is tough because a lot of them are bogus. Okay.
Maybe I wasn't listening to you because I was thinking about what I wanted to ask you next or something. Like that. What's the supplement that you're talking about?
Well, for me, my company that I distribute for is called Isogenics.
Okay, so you're talking about those, whether it be vitamins or other stuff that come in.
Minerals primarily is what we're not getting in our diet on a daily basis. Seriously, trace minerals. Then you look at the proper amount of vitamins, enzymes, huge factor, things like that, protein, carbs, everything. It's not in the food. It's dead food. We are eating dead food, it's processed, and it's affecting us. And the body is no longer going to go ahead and maintain its level of fitness at a certain time in your life. It's going to happen.
Well, here's the thing, is it's like one reason why I keep bringing you on is hopefully through osmosis, I'm just going to get in better shape.
Eventually.
But it's, I'm just going to be honest with you. With me, sometimes it's just like you got to get in that habit because I've had periods where I've been on a great cycle.
You got it.
And a period where I'm in a funk. And it's just like creating the time, to do that.
Right.
It's not always like, because once you get into the habit, it feels good. You always feel good walking out the door of a gym.
Exactly.
Or showering, sit in the jacuzzi after you've done the work. But what would you recommend to people that just like, this is serious. One is you got to let them know how serious it is, I imagine.
Right, yeah.
And hopefully they get motivated. But what if they're just, they don't have time, they say?
Well, you see, and that's why with my program, it's about 3.5 minutes. to get a complete comprehensive, all your protein, carbs, fats, minerals, vitamins in your body. And you can, if you don't have 3.5 minutes in the morning, then you've got some problems, okay, for one thing. Then start going organic. It's not difficult to start looking at organic foods. Coconut milk, rice milk, okay? Milk is a whole new subject I can go on, okay? Take a half an hour talking about how bad milk is in a sense, unless you go raw. Organic is the way to go. Organic food is amazing. When you eat organic food, you have a lot of energy. When you eat dead food, you're tired, you're wiped out. It takes 21 days to create a habit if you do something every day, 30 days physically to adapt to it, and 90 days on what they call a cellular level. And when you get into this habit, it's like brushing your teeth, showering, you don't even think about brushing your teeth, you just do it. When you get into a habit of doing a supplement program that takes less than 3.5 minutes to fortify your body with everything you need and eat, because I'm not a diet, you die on diets, like I've said in your past show. DIE, they put the T on to head fake you out. Diets there's 300,000 books written. Can you imagine? Why? You shouldn't be on diets. You should just be eating nutritionally dense, organic type foods. They're hard to find, but go to the farmer's market. Start supporting the local farmers. Don't go to Safeway and all these people and start buying nothing but sugar and processed foods. You're gonna kill yourself.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
You know.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I talk to a lot of nutritionists, people like yourself. It's a lot of the food that we that is produced here is to make money.
Yeah, absolutely, no question.
And I'd rather spend the extra money to get something really good for you. Okay,
definitely.
So, Marty, thanks for being on the program.
My pleasure. All right. Good seeing you.
Marty Sharpe's been my guest. If you have any questions for Marty or any of my guests, please get a hold of me at 408-269-8366 or Brian at 4bestloan.com. We'll be right back with the final thoughts. I just simply want to thank my guest, Matt Cestaric. He's with Stevensen and Neal Realtors. He's a broker associate. Also, Robert Balopole with Balopole Investment Management. Madison Nguyen, who's running for District 7 council member once again in June. And Marty Sharpe in the lifestyle segment. I want to encourage you once again, if you have any questions, get a hold of me at 408-269-8366 or Brian at 4bestloan.com. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week here on Get Real. Good night.